Welcome back, Moto fans, to the 17th and final episode of the inaugural season of the Fantasy SX Preview Show from RotoX Fantasy, your only resource on the web dedicated to maximizing your PulpMX fantasy score. My name is Donnie, and the end is nigh. SLC7 takes place Sunday, June 21st, and will cap off a season that will not soon be forgotten. 3 championships will be decided on the track, and when it's all said and done, one person is going to wake up Monday morning the proud owner of a 2020 YZ450F. It won't be me, and it probably will not be you, but someone. As always, 5 riders for you to look at when making your picks: FFL, Intel, the track map, weather, schedule, and since this race is our one in only 250 East-West Showdown, we will go extra in-depth into that class to help you sort it out. But first, let us recap SLC6. We just barely stayed over 4,000 championship players at SLC6, down a whopping 5.6% from SLC5. I told you this was going to happen after so many low scores the race before. I figured most people would throw in the towel, and they did, but don't be like them. Every point matters, and what if you kill it outdoors and slacking off at the end of Supercross is what keeps you from a national number? Only 13 All-Stars showed up to race Wednesday, and all but 2 of them gained 26 points. That's right, 7 out of 8 in the 450s and 4 out of 5 250s. Unfortunately, a tough day for the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna All-Stars, as Swole and Wilson were the only 2 to score less than 26. Out of the remaining 31 riders eligible for double points, a staggering 25 of them managed to double up, including 3 250 riders that maxed out with 52 points. If you had those 3, Chase Marquier, Curran Thurman, and Lorenzo Lacurcio, in addition to 3 of the 450 studs, and avoided Jalik and Dean, you wound up taking home 314 points. Punctuate that with the usual suspects, McElrath and Osborne for FFL, and that equals a cool 344. Nobody got that score, by the way. The median score in the Champ League was 226, meaning if you scored 227 or more, you did better than half of the paying class. Good job. The 0-point heartbreaks were light this time, with only the 7 deuce Adam Entignap having over 10% worth of pick trend, and he is joined by his teammate Ryan Brees with almost 5% pick trend on the sideline to watch teammate Kyle Cunningham in the main. For absolutely no good reason, a ridiculously high amount of pick trend was devoted to All-Stars that are out for the season. I feel like this is just people throwing. It's not cool, it's not funny, but hey, if I sucked as bad as these guys probably do, maybe I would want to be the best at being the worst too. But I don't suck. I had a pretty good race. 262, led by Chase Marquier's 52. Chase was the one guy that was never leaving my team. I considered leaving Starling off to save him for the showdown, but after qualifying top 10, I had to pull the trigger on him now. Jerry jerried, but with a high enough handicap, he still managed double points. The 450 squad was nothing to brag about, but just raking in double at this point in the season is good enough for me. Also, I went 1 for 2 on the FFLs, as I went with McElrath and nailed it, but I also went with Webb's hot hand over the tried and true Osborne. One guy that really stomped my dick in was MDeek976, leading the RotoX League and the entire game with 312 points. Deke had 2 of the 352s, both FFLs, and Brayton's 34 to cap off a great comeback, literally doubling their SLC5 score. B. Smith 831 still at the top of the Roto League despite a quiet race. He holds a 26-point lead over EXO going into the Salt Lake finale. Now, before we move on to the SLC7 preview, don't forget to take a sec to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and follow RotoX Fantasy on Twitter and Instagram. Letting the social media giants know that you enjoy the content on this channel really helps put it in front of some new eyes, and I really appreciate it every time you guys do it. It only takes a sec, and it's almost as good as a theoretical dollar. Breaking a bit of tradition here, we're going to start with the 450s, and I'll show you why in just a few minutes. Starting with your 450 All-Star, let's take a look at Zach Osborne. I don't think I have to explain why he's on here. I have no idea what Paul and the crew were thinking with this handicap, despite 7 top 5s in a row. He still only needs 5th to double up on points. Some might say, yeah, but he's due for a stinker. But as long as he keeps getting these starts and staying out of trouble, he is on my team. There is not a lot of value to be had in the 450 class, as it feels like everyone is kind of settling in right where they belong. But this race, I have my eyes on Justin Hill at a 4. Since we started in SLC, Justin has not been the same. Maybe it's the altitude, maybe it's the bike, maybe it's mental, or maybe he's just not pushing himself now that Big Brother isn't racing too. But 14th place should be doable for Justin, and what very well may be his last chance to impress a team for next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Justin goes out with a bang. He has top 10 potential, and if he could flirt with even just a 10th, that would lead to 34 points. All right, let's get to the 250s. We haven't seen these guys race each other yet, and it's very hard to compare them without any qualifying times to go off of. Even when they finally get on the same track, they will qualify separately, and the track conditions could be just different enough to mislead us one way or another. The best thing I could come up with is to use SLC5 and SLC6 for comparison, as they were nearly identical tracks. The West did have better weather, however, as the East SLC6 had to deal with a bit of wetness early in the day. The 450 times were similar, but again, the disadvantage of the wet could have been offset by the advantage of having twice as much track time as usual. So here's what I got. We can all agree that the top 2 in each class are in a league of their own. No one would be surprised if Ferrandis, Faulkner, Sexton, or McElrath ended up winning on Sunday, right? Similarly, no one would be surprised if whichever one of those guys would be left off the podium. It's literally that close. So let's compare the rest of the class against the top 2 guys in each coast. This graph shows how far behind the top 2 each guy was qualifying in each class. The red line is the East, the blue is the West. The 3rd place guy in each class is relatively close, but then it starts to split drastically, with the top 9 West guys all within 1 second of the leaders, while only 4 East guys can say the same. It's absurd to think that a 10th place guy in the West would actually qualify top 5 in the East. That's the disparity that everyone is talking about. Obviously, 9 of each class is guaranteed to the main, and the LCQ will be mixed. I would not be surprised if we end up with an overload of 4 LCQ transfers all being out of the West. Albeit not realistic, of course. My guess is 12 West riders in the main, 10 out of the East, and the handicappers seem to agree with me. Look at how many more double point riders there are with lower handicaps in the West versus the East. Of the 11 sent from the heat to the LCQ, it looks very likely that 7 of them will be 16 handicap coming out of the East versus only 3 super long shots in the West. Imagine if it all shakes down how it should, and the guys that have done the best at SLC all make it through the heat. That leaves guys like Christian Craig, Mitchell Oldenburg, and Alex Martin going to the LCQ. Can you imagine one of those guys not making the main? Those are the guys that John Short, Jace Owen, and Justin Starling need to beat in order to get in. And if Craig, Oldie, and Amart all make it, plus John Short, the lowest handicap guy of the remaining East guys, that means the highest handicap in the main is an 8. This means there are bound to be tons of good riders missing out on doubling up. My suggestion is to finish out strong, and swinging for the fences doesn't mean a lot of high handicap guys like it might, or you're just going to be setting yourself up for a very rough night. But I can't stop you, and I know you're going to do it anyway. So if you want to grip it and rip it, here's where to look. I really want to suggest Justin Starling here, and I will, technically. He has a much weaker heat, and we all know Justin has speed. If he can get a good start and sneak out of the heat straight into the main, his 14 could very well mean 52 points, but literally half of you picked him last week. So I have a bonus suggestion. Give me Mitchell Falk. Mitch is a 15, and yes, he has the hard heat, and I don't see him getting through straight out of the heat, but I think he has the best chance of the 10 plus handicap guys of sneaking through that LCQ. Falk has been here before. He came out of the LCQ in Vegas last year and just posted his best finish of the year at his last race, SLC5. I personally will not be having Falk or Starling on my team, but for you big dick gamblers out there, I think this might be your play. My actual realistic recommendation is obviously Colt Nichols. 25% of you picked him in Salt Lake 6, negating my warning to save him. So a good bit are locked out of what could be a huge score. Remember, when we talked about the Big Four and how they were all close in speed, Nichols belongs in that group too. With 3 consecutive podiums, he has to be the clear-cut number 3 in the East, and I would slot him just ahead of a fading Justin Cooper and an erratic Cameron McAdoo as the 5th best guy in the 250s. Even at that -1, 5th would bring home 34 points. And who would be surprised if this guy wins the whole damn thing? Not me, and that's why he's my lock for SLC7. Your 250 All-Star is going to be a toss-up. I don't think there is a great choice here. Marchbanks is still top 4 in points in his coast and retains his All-Star status, but remember, he is out for SLC7. That leaves a whole lot of low handicap risks at the top and underachievers elsewhere, except for one. Joe Shimoda is the clear outlier in the All-Star lineup, and rightfully so, as I do not think he is in the same league as the other 6 guys. But a 10 handicap? Man, a 10 could be real tasty. Keep an eye on him in qualifying and see where he stacks up. Worst case scenario, he makes the main, he minimizes damage if something catastrophic happens. A DNF from the other guys could wreck your night, but a dead last finish from Joe would still net you 11 points, which is a major salvage from the All-Star spot. Before you decide if you're going to go full send or not, remember you still have something to lose. The top 99 national numbers are awarded based on the indoor and outdoor scores combined, which is ultimately the goal I set for myself at the start of the year to make that top 100. So I'm still playing it relatively safe. I'm kind of playing it as if it were any other week. Make sure you have a clear goal when setting your team every week, and especially this week. Winning a weekly prize or a season prize, or maybe just bragging rights in your local league, no sense in pissing away a good season just because you feel like you're out of it. You did good this year. Take what you've learned from me and show me just what I'm making this content for and why I need to keep putting it out. The track is a bit intricate for SLC7. The start is as short or shorter than SLC3 and 4 and also features the sharpest corner of the lot, which seems to feature an uncharacteristically steep first corner bank. The first 2 rhythms are identical with one plate in reverse and a long set of whoops also reminiscent of what we saw in 3 and 4, maybe longer than that time, and before the finish what could make for some very exciting finishes. 3 left-handers, 6 right-handers, 5 of those rights are consecutive. This track features way more 90s than what we've seen at SLC so far, with 4 90-degree turns and 5 bull turns. The Supercross triple following one of those right 90s, expect to see some passes coming out of that corner, slowing up the guy just before the triple, especially the 250 guys that might struggle with the jump from the inside, or just struggle for the jump anyway because of the altitude. The riders will do 100% of a complete lap before the finish, meaning no quick grab FFLs this time. Zach Osborne has to be your clear-cut favorite for the 450 FFL. He has 6 on the season and 3 of the FFLs in SLC. Kenny also has 6, but has been shut out since the series moved to the state of sport. And honorable mention for Cooper Webb, who has 2 since being in SLC. Personally, I'm not touching the 250 FFLs. Gun to my head, I guess I would take McElrath. He has 5 on the season, 3 out of 4 in SLC, and the Star bikes have 5 of the last 6, with Faulkner being the only one not on a blue bike. Not touching the FFL, but I do have Star Yamaha all over my way too early team. Otherwise, give me Justin Cooper right now for a 250 All-Star. I don't know what's up with J. Coop in the second half of the season, but I still think he's an easy top 10 and hopefully even a top 6. Nichols at a -1 for the reasons given before, also for a top 6 finish, if he would be so kind. I have Little Mac Cameron McAdoo also penciled in at a -1. I'm not giving myself a lot of wiggle here, but I just don't think there's much wiggle to be had. If you want to score big in the Showdown, you got to take guys that like to taste the dirt, and I think Mac has the highest upside to dirt ratio. And my 4th and final slot currently belongs to Christian Craig. I want to take one of the Lawrence brothers, but Craig is just behind Jet for me in his raw finish potential, but obviously 4 more handicap makes me feel a little better. 450s again, starting off with Zach Osborne. I couldn't click Zach fast enough even before I researched and compiled any stats. Justin Hill also on my early team for all the reasons that I already mentioned before. Hopefully I can catch one of Justin's spirited rides. Brock Tickle is my 3rd guy here. Tick doesn't have a lot of value, but who does? I would like to put Marty here, but quite frankly, my heart can't take any more of that. And rounding out my squad is the Bear, Tyler Bowers. Not sure if he was just uncomfortable last race or what. His lap times did not show any fatigue, and he didn't go down. Just seemed like he didn't have it. I think he has a solid chance at 26, and I hope for another top 15, which could mean 34 points for number 34. Unfortunately, we are back on that daytime program, and it's going to be warm and sunny. We really have had the great variety pack of Utah weather. 84 degrees when the first heat race gates drop, and partly sunny forecast before the temperature balloons up to 86 when the checkers fly. Daytime program means an early one for the West Coasters. The television qualifying will begin at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific, so make sure you get your coffee running. Maybe, just maybe, they'll actually show some of that first qualifying session since some of the fastest guys will be in it instead of talking through half of it. Maybe. Expect your cheat sheet to drop around 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific, and we are going to try something new tomorrow, right at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific, 1 hour before gates drop, noon if you're at the race. We are going live on YouTube. That's right, live from the studio, or whatever you want to call this white void that I'm in. It will be our very, very first live stream for RotoX, so make sure to stop by and I can chat with y'all about what to take away from qualifying, maybe even a little one-on-one attention to help you make your picks. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button below, hit the little bell so you get a notification when the live feed starts, and be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram for up-to-the-minute updates on qualifying, track conditions, weather, some mid-race commentary, memes, and a bit of chatter while we wait for the races. Thank you so much, as always, for watching another episode of RotoX Fantasy, and an extra special thank you to you that have been there since the very first video. I will see you and talk with you guys soon. My name is Donnie, and for the final time this season, may your chiz is chiz, your Jerry's not always Jerry. He's racing 450s, by the way. Remember, good picks lead to good points. I will see you Sunday.